Okay, so we have Telemann Sonata in F minor, right? Why don't you just go ahead and dive in? Do you want to work on the whole thing, specific movements? What are you?
I mean, we can just start with the first and then.
All right.
See where it goes.
Cool. Show me what you got. Great. Yeah. Sounds great. I haven't heard you play this one before, so that's very, very nice. Good job.
Thank you.
So, I think you have a wonderful, warm sound. Vibrato is working great for you. What do you think, this is obviously not a technically challenging movement, what's the most difficult thing about this movement?
I think differences in your pianos versus your fortes, and also just kind of, for me, planning out my breathing.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
The pacing and the breathing is
Yeah.
really, really challenging for this movement because you don't get a break. You have an eighth rest here and there, and you just keep going the whole time, right? So, what I was going to say, what I was sensing is that when in these slow movements in the Baroque period, you do have the ability to take more time to make the phrasing work better in your favor, and it can also help with the breathing. So, for instance, it seemed to me you were more in a bind as you got further into it because the little shortness of oxygen begins to accumulate through the piece, right? So as you get down to the last three lines here, this is when things start getting really challenging. And I think that's where these kinds of things popped out more than they did in the beginning. In the beginning, it wasn't as noticeable, but it got more so towards the end. So, stay over here. I'm gonna just to pick one spot. This little trill at the end of this phrase. You felt the need to go on pretty immediately. But with the change of dynamic coming up to mezzo forte from the piano, I think that you can take more time to set that up. Conclude the previous phrase, and then go on with the new idea, and feel free to take more time like that. Let's see if we can find some of those cases like that. And it doesn't, I don't want you to feel as restricted metronomically, where you have to keep this super steady pulse going all the time. You can, when you get to this next movement, less flexibility here.
Right.
It kind of chugs along like a motor. And if you take too many liberties there, then you really start to lose the forward driving feel of a faster movement. But when you're in the slower movement like this, you can actually really work those moments of taking extra time at the ends of phrases If you overdo it, it is possible to overdo it. But we'll see, like you've heard me say before, we're going to try to do too much, and then we'll know what too much is, okay?
Right. Yep.
Okay, so let's find, pick a spot. I found one randomly. Is there a spot here that...
I think actually where you picked is fine. You can start there. Just going from like this phrase to that phrase.
Oh, okay, I see.
Or I mean...
This is the beginning of a phrase, actually. So this is one of the places I was thinking of. Shoot, where's a better place than that? Maybe here is where I'm thinking of. This is basically you have the initial melody up here being transposed down, right, to the fifth degree of the scale. So this is the sort of quasi sonata form. So which you're starting in school, right? You said about sonata form.
Yep.
Shut up, Alex. That's what she's thinking.
No.
I didn't come here for a lesson in theory.
Not at all.
So I think let's back it up just before that.
Okay.
Because you're building. So yeah, let's start over here.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning of the previous phrase and see if we can take a little bit of time to set that really obvious playing of the original theme in a new key. Okay, so. Yeah, and that's exactly right. I think before you kind of you took a breath, but what it did is it shortened that when you did that before, you shortened that note up quite a bit to make the breath happen and still come in time. That time you took plenty of time transitioning to the next phrase, and all of a sudden it just feels so much more relaxed, like you did actually complete the previous phrase before starting the next one. And then you can go change gears completely. And it kind of takes you back to the way you played the very first one. Play it, the same way you did at the top of the page. So let's see if we can find some more examples of exactly that kind of thing here.
Yeah.
Let's take it from the beginning. I think that'll get us. When I feel like now your goal is to try and not give me one of those things to notice, right?
Yep.
Okay. See if you can apply this on the fly. But if I hear one where I thought, oh, you could have taken time and set that up, I'll throw my hands up, okay?
Sounds good.
Or some
Perfect.
other big motion.
That works.
For a second, I want to mention something else about the thing. You mentioned one of the things earlier, what makes this movement hard is getting the bigger differences in dynamics. And I think you're absolutely right. What I'm hearing is a little bit of just going a bit beyond mezzo forte, mezzo piano, but not really exploring perhaps as full as it could be. We'll see if I can, I'll hit a light with the bassoon. So if I want to make a big statement at the beginning of this thing, and then have the exact same phrase sound like an echo, it kind of behooves me to make the first one as big as I can get away with, and still be, in the style of Baroque. So not like Mahler big, but it's pretty full. Really try to come back on that. So it all depends on how big the first one is, because it's all relative, right?
Yep.
Can you make more of the very first one, and then the second one? You don't have to try. Then you don't have to. You're not backed into a corner trying to play as quietly as you can, and a note doesn't come out. Okay.
Okay.
See if you can just make that one real nice and fat.
off towards the end instead of saying piano or forte the whole time.
Ah, yeah. I was going to say exactly that. Yeah. No. So if it's going to be full, make the whole statement full.
Right.
And with these triplets, take a little more gravitas to them. Right now, they seem just a little bit hurried through. Bum, dee, da, da, dee, da, dum. Okay? Right out of the gate, you have duple versus triple. So your listener hears boom in the piano, right? And then you play boom, boom, boom. They're thinking, and one. I get that rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately you switch to triplets. So anything you can do to help your listener to understand that shift between duple and triple that happens right out of the gate with this piece, the more effective those rhythmic differences are. So they don't sound accidental. If you push through the triplets a little bit too quick, then your listener might think, oh, it's bum, da, da, dum, dee, da, dum. Even though you might play dum, dee, da, da, dee, da, da. Even though you make the triplets even, for a moment there's a kind of a question in the listener's mind, like, what was that? Oh, okay, I see. So what I think you can do is just lay on those a little bit. So the listener doesn't know what rhythm you're playing until the second note of the grouping, right? If you've changed.
Right.
If you're cooking along with a duple division, and then you change to triple, the listener doesn't know until you get to the second note of that triplet group, and then it came quicker than they thought, and the third one was placed in the right place, and so forth. So that seems to be what's driving the triplets being a little bit too quick, but just trust that your listener will still understand a nice weighty triplet. The rest of the whole movement, you get that here, and you get it when the restatement, well, there's one other thing, but you get, no, this is it. This is the only two places. And the rest of it's all duple. That's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I feel like if I'm playing this, I want to bring out that rhythmic, interesting point. And then everything else is all duple from there on out. So that's your one chance to really bring out the triplet and just da dee da 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 da. Don't be afraid about. You have every chance in the world to pick it back up again. You're not going to tank the whole movement by just playing those nice and way. So give that a try. See if you like the idea.
Yeah.
And you can, if you think it's foolish, you can ignore it.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right, give it a try. Let's see what it sounds like. Okay, first two measures. I absolutely nailed that rhythm. It was perfect. It had nice weight to it. Clearly triplets, no confusion from what I'm hearing at all about what it could be. Now, this next thing here, what do you see as the shape of this?
I mean, I kind of see these first four notes leading up to the suspension, because I think that's kind of the point there that you're going towards. That'll like direct the listener's ears to that suspension.
Yeah.
And then
Just B flat that's hanging over, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then just kind of descending from there. But it's interesting because, we always think of descending lines and decrescendo, and then ascending lines as crescendo, but I don't think that's what he's intending here. But I think it's always going to have it to decrescendo after you get past that suspension.
So you keep saying the word suspension, and I agree that this is a harmonically interesting moment when you're hanging on the B flat and the piano changes to a different chord and the B flat is hanging out there waiting to be resolved. What I heard is bum beam bum 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 dee da dum da. So it almost like the whole phrase almost did this from the first note. At least there was a tapering in the first few notes, and then maybe it just didn't feel like it emphasized what you were saying you wanted to emphasize. Okay. So it probably is just a question of you thinking that something's happening, but it didn't actually come all the way across.
Sure.
So let's, I don't want to give you specific instructions of which notes, but I want you to try to achieve your plan, making that suspension be that place that you want to arrive at. It's an important part of the phrase for you. Do that better, because you weren't, before this time you were definitely emphasizing maybe the first two notes of bum, bee, bum, bum, bum. and I want you to do it the other way. So start at the beginning so that you get into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to try and make that phrase better depict the direction that you intend.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, now that time you got to the B flat and there was still a lot of gas left in the tank. You hadn't come away from it, so that was definitely better. More along the lines. Again, you have to experiment to see what is too much and then dial it back from there. So if you were to really make a big deal out of it, that might be a bit too much. So maybe come back a little bit. And that way, that B flat is just really soaring and singing when that chord underneath changes, and it's in the conflict that has to be resolved.
Mm.
So I want more commitment from you to that idea. I think you have the right idea of what you want to do, but you're not. You just think, well, they'll get it. It's going to be fine. I think I'm doing enough. No. Hit them over the head with it. It's Baroque music, but we still hit them over the head. Musicians were the same in the Baroque as they are now, and you still had to perform your heart out, even though we have music that seems like it's crazier now than they wrote in the Baroque.
Mm.
This was crazy in the Baroque. It was the cutting edge. There was a time when this was cutting edge music, and we have to play it in that same way. Okay, so
Yeah.
Can you go from the beginning again?
Yeah.
And just with you kind of went back on the triplets to a little bit more like you were doing it before.
Yeah, I got
So dee da dee da da da. The only triplets you get to play. Milk it, baby. Okay, this is definitely better than it was when I heard it before. At least in mine. It sounds you are incorporating the things we talked about. Okay, what do you like this idea?
No, I do. I
Yeah?
think and I completely see what you're saying about. You always think, or feel like you're getting an idea across, and then when somebody else listens to it, it's like, no, not quite. So I think that was very helpful.
Okay, good. Well, that little momentary phrase, I think in particular, you definitely were hitting the beginning of that thing and cupping away, so you were not emphasizing what you said you wanted to. So,
Right.
so I just wanted to bring to your attention that could be definitely, you need to overdo in that moment a lot more than what you think you're doing.
Mm.
So, and this last time through, completely different than all the previous times you had done it.
Mm.
So keep doing along those lines. Now, these are all little tiny phraselets, right? We've got a one measure phrase, another one measure phrase, and then, whoa, we get two full measures in a row. Okay, and now we have this thing. Now, I see you've got, okay, so the fortes and the pianos, this is all editorialized. Telemann did not write that kind of stuff in the music.
Mm.
That wasn't the thing back then. It was expected that the musicians would know what to do to make it interesting.
Mm.
So, or at least they had the license to do what they wanted to do. So someone has written things in there, and you've changed some of it, which is great. So you have your own ideas. What I want to hear from you is more of that forte marking that you have there, and a bigger contrast to the piano that comes later, okay? And that might simply be just playing this bit louder. I know, I get the impression so far you've been playing this thing where if your ceiling of sound is here, like you could not make a bigger sound on the bassoon and it's here, you are giving yourself a lot of headroom on this piece. You're not really exploring this part of it. You are getting, you have a nice quiet as well. So you have a pretty decent range from mezzo, forte-ish, forte, down to your piano and pianissimo, which is great. But I think to make that difference really pop with this really terrace dynamics that are in this thing, really tiered, very far apart, I think that you can do more on the upper end.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So can we take it, I hesitate to start right here because we can just play the first four measures again. Let's take it from the beginning, play the first four measures, keep doing that, what you're doing over there, and then using those same ideas of really making the dynamics, especially in the upward direction, use more of the headroom that you have available. I want to hear the louds a little bit fuller, a little bit more digging into it a little bit more, and then the echoes can be not only quieter, but a little bit more subdued in their personality as well. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Was that as big a difference as you could make between the forte and the piano, and then back to forte?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I could do more.
From measure 5 again. That was definitely more of a difference, okay? Now, don't telegraph to the listener what's coming up next. You've played,
Yeah.
you know what you did?
Yeah, I did a piano,
Yes,
right
right at the end you did, whoop, I'm
Sneak
gonna be
peek.
quiet. Yeah, and you gave away what was coming up. You were looking ahead already. Fool them. The whole point of these ideas is to have the audience go, ooh, right? And if you telegraph it, then they don't have as much of the surprise, ooh, kind of feeling. There you go, oh, I saw that coming. I knew what she was going to do. So if you go instead, no, my reed's running out, but we'll see. And then maybe that's, so I like what you did with taking a little bit of time on this accent that's here. That's ink, right? I don't know if that's a Telemann thing or not, the accents that are on here.
It's probably editorial, but.
Maybe it might be editorial. It's a nice, I think it's nice to do. It gives a little bit of emphasis to those notes. And, but I think doing it 2 times in a row is a bit overdone.
Got it.
And if the first statement is very declamatory, then you don't have to make a big deal out of it. It's already like this. And if the next one is, it changes notes, right?
Yep.
That's the difference. That's the moment to bring attention to that, special attention to that. Take that moment that you're doing, instead of doing it both times, save it for the second time. Because that's the special moment, right? That's the difference. Okay, so not only big first time and a little bit more subdued the second, well, much more subdued the second time, but also that little tweak to the accented note. Okay?
Cool. Yeah.
Sure. Give it a try. And then forte, keep going. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very good.
It kind of felt weird, to kind of blow through that at first, because I'm so used to whoa, that note, but.
Which one? Oh, you saw
this
a little bit of pause on that B flat in the louder part. Yeah.
But I think that makes a lot of sense.
So the other part is, I'm going down in the weeds in this one because you're playing everything so well. I think we have to go way down into the really super detailed musical stuff. What I was hearing is,
Yep.
and you're thinking correct rhythm is not to carry that note over into the next measure. Yeah, so the way the music is written on the page, the notes are grouped in a certain way that it looks like this bar line means thou shalt not play a note past the bar line, right?
Yeah.
But it's not true. I think that it's okay to give that note some finesse, some conclusion of itself. So it doesn't sound like it's dee-da-da-da, like that, but dee-da-da-da. It doesn't have to be, I played it super long when I just played the example the first time here. But I don't think that would be that uncalled for. You have a whole 8th rest, which at this tempo is a fair amount of time, before you play the next one that's much quieter. So there is already room for the air to clear, for the piano to be heard. Even if you were to play ya-da-dee-da, and even ya at the last note and really just sing that, there's a little bit of room for the air to clear before you go like that, okay? So that note, again, it's part of the gotcha of this one is all about dragging your audience one way and then going another way, right? Lots of big jumps in dynamic up and down, and things that seemingly are repetitious of each other, but they're actually not. Those kinds of things these little surprises are the things you want to bring out. And when you have when you have an opportunity to really surprise your audience, I think you got to jump on those things. Those are the most fun things to listen to for me. Like when a performer does something and I go, "Oh man, I did not see that coming. That's so cool." All right? Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, give that a try and see if you can not chip that note, give it full value, and maybe even slightly hangover, and then let the air clear and play the piano one. Okay, was this one, that very last two measure thing, was it like this one? So was it the same kind of shape we're talking about? It's the same phrase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're in major instead of minor, right?
I was intending to make it like the same, but it probably didn't come across as.
It wasn't as good as the first one,
Yeah.
as the F minor one that you did up there. Okay, so that's something else to see too. When you can when you can link the phrasing together in two similar phrases, maybe different keys, but they're the same phrase, same general layout, and you can link them if it makes sense. Sometimes I think in this case it does make sense to link it together.
Yep.
To use a similar kind of phrasing to bring the audience's attention to the fact that, hey, we just did this, but guess what? We're in a major key now, so check that out. I think that's a neat thing to draw into this. Now, oh my gosh, we've done one measure phrase, two measure phrase, one measure phrase, two measure phrase. What say we do something that takes a little bit longer? What's coming up next is a little bit more of a longer phrase, and you have to build for way longer time. So let's talk about, let's keep going.
Sure.
Okay? Go to measure 9 there. Okay, so this is a repetition of that, right?
Yep.
Basically, with a little change. So, is it going to, this says forte. I'm just going off what it says. Clearly we can make a decision. This is forte, nice and full, and this one is, this two measures is a repetition of that one, but piano. But this was about the same, was about the same level of dynamic as this one. So it takes away from making a big difference in the two, okay? Can you play the forte, we'll start at the beginning of that measure 9 again, but when you get there, can you sustain that full forte close all the way to the very end of this thing? So again, when you go to the piano, surprise. And it's really going to be, you'll be able to draw the listener in with saying, here's a very similar statement of what it is played, but now it's quiet and we're going in a slightly different direction than we just came from, okay? Because you have those couple notes that are different towards the end of it, okay? So from measure 9 again. It was a very nice build up to that forte. I want you to just keep it up there, keep it going, okay?
Sure.
Because of what you know is coming up next. Yeah, so this is, now they're two one is definitely an echo of the other one with a nice little twist of different notes. And the first one carried all the way through. That to me brings a lot more attention to the difference between the two of them. Otherwise it sounds like this one might be just a continuation of that, because you drop a dynamic down in the first one and then this picked up basically the same dynamic here.
Got it.
Okay? All right. So Yeah, you're right. The dynamics are the trick to this thing.
Yeah, seems like it.
And
Which
how-
is kind of funny because they, it wouldn't have been something that Tillman wrote, but like you said, they just kind of understood that.
I think
Yeah.
they would. I mean, we don't know for sure.
Maybe.
For sure. If I were living back then, I think the people who were more successful would have been the ones who make the music more interesting. This, like I said, this was cutting edge at its time. There was a time when this was brand new, and no one had ever heard anything like it. All kinds of Baroque music.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to treat it that way when we're preparing it. Like, this is not, oh, Baroque music, it's so old. I mean, that's just, he died in 1767, so, that's old. Good Lord, 300 plus years old. No, this was brand spanking new one day. And we have to give it that same kind of, like, I want to make this the most exciting thing I could possibly make it, even though it doesn't have lots of flashy notes going everywhere and crazy arpeggios and all the great, maybe, bassoon writing that we get in the centuries that come afterwards. Mm. But still, it has its moments that we need to dig them out and just, like, not just mention them, like, with our playing, mention that this is an interesting thing, but billboard it. This is the interesting thing about this piece. Guess what? It starts out with duple versus triple right out. Go ahead, you guessed what rhythm I'm playing. Ha-ha. Which is interesting. It doesn't come back anywhere else. The triplets are only in the first two measures and only in the change of key in the middle of it, and that's it. The rest of it's all duple. You'd think when a composer starts out composing, they take that initial melody and they try to elaborate on the very first thing they write. He gets it out there and then says, and kind of walks away from it in a way, compositionally speaking. Huh. But then he brings it back as something that it brings your attention to the fact that, oh, now we're in a different key. Mm. That's why this rhythm is so important. So that the listener, the second time they hear it coming up here, they just really latch onto it. Sure. That's how it started. Oh my gosh, and this is a different key. Mm. So it kind of gives the listener like a sense of pacing of the entire movement. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'm kind of going. We talked a lot about in this movement dynamics. Pacing of dynamics, the pacing of the rhythm, and how to not jip notes. I hope that kind of stuff is going to be helpful for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know you just played this in a recital, so now I hope you don't put it away forever or forget, like say, oh, I'm sick of this piece. But I think that those are you play this really so well that it's a shame not to. I know you can do all those things I'm asking for, and you're demonstrating it here. I almost want you to have another performing opportunity so you can then incorporate them and put that as part of like your permanent, the way you permanently do this so that it's captured as opposed to maybe it would run away. But what other movements do you have in this one that you want to do?
We could do the second or third, fourth, whatever one you feel like.
Are you saying you're prepared to do all of it?
I am prepared to do all of it.
Good. Yeah, I want to hear you play something with some technique in it.
Sure.
Do I want to do this one or the last movement? The danger of me having you play the last movement is if I have to demonstrate something, I don't know if I can do it. Because I haven't prepared this myself. Yeah, let's do the last one. I like that one. Yeah. That one's super boppy and fun.
Super fun. Yeah, I really liked it.
I'm going to put this down for a sec. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries.
breathing nightmare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Another great characteristic of Baroque music. They didn't breathe back
It
then.
doesn't stop.
Yeah, in the 18th century, they didn't breathe. I don't know if you knew that. That's a little known fact about human beings at that time.
Got it. That
Not
makes
really
a lot
necessary.
of sense. Yep.
Yeah, which explains a lot. No, so yeah, it's a challenge to figure out how to do the breathing. And so you're doing a lot of sort of idiomatic things. You've made very conscious decisions of some of these things. So maybe what I probably will do is at certain points ask you why you decided to do a certain phrase a certain way, or length of notes and things like that.
Sure.
I like that you're adding a little bit of improvisatory extras in there. That's great. I think if you had pulled out double tonguing in the Baroque period, someone would have pooed themselves. I don't know if that was a thing back then. I have no idea. No one talks about it. But it's certain. It's a very fun way to embellish. So I appreciate that. That's great. Have you experimented with embellishing in other ways?
A little bit, kind of like, not really anything that I practiced in for my recital, but
Yeah.
Here just kind of adding a couple of ornament notes.
Like what? What were you doing?
I have to play this slowly, but we were doing it this phrase.
Oh yeah. Oh, I see that stuff built in. Sure.
Yeah, but
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think would be probably just more of the time. But
Yeah, on the repeat for sure. Yeah,
Yes,
that to me would be that's a very typical thing to do in a Baroque period, to embellish like that. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you could do is if you have these kinds of arpeggios, you can just connect them up, fill notes in between. That kind of thing. That was a very common thing to do too. Where you added some trills over here. You added a trill to that thing.
yeah.
So a more
I guess, but
yeah. So you wanted to get the C in there because it's written, but I think once you commit to adding a trill like that, you can just make the trill the thing.
got it.
Yeah. Don't worry about the fact that there's still a C there. That's part of embellishing or improvising in the style, is to not feel completely committed to all the notes that are originally on the page. You might have to make certain adjustments to make it really work. And Bach and Vivaldi and Telemann and all these guys, when they're improvising, maybe not, I don't know if Vivaldi played keyboard. I know Telemann did, I know Bach did. The improvising that they did, especially the stuff that they wrote out that we know about, because they wrote plenty of things down that they did, fantasias and things like that. So we know that what they would have done is they would have kind of thrown away some of the core stuff that they're improvising on to get the lick in that they want to replace it with.
Mm-hmm.
So don't feel like you have to get the C in here just because you want. The trill is a cool idea. It really gives it driving energy, and trills almost always mean it's almost the end. So it's kind of a fun thing to throw in there. I like that idea a lot.
Cool. Yeah.
Now let's talk about. So this is where we get to talk about some technique. I'm going to try and play some of this. I want you to watch my fingers. I want you to, in fact, when we're done here, we can probably take this recording and we can watch if we can see your fingers. I don't know if they'll be hidden behind a stand or not.
Oh, maybe.
But if you can see your fingers, I want you to see how far out they're going from where they, maybe from mine. You can compare the two. And I'm going to guess that mine don't travel as far as yours do, and it might be affecting some of the accuracy things that you're having.
Sure.
So forgive me for slaughtering some of these phrases, but watch my fingers and ignore what you hear and try to just pay attention to what you're seeing. Okay? So I'm not able to see while I'm playing, of course. And if you can, that's closer than they were before. I was seeing some things over here where your fingers are coming away, maybe as much as an inch away from the instrument.
Okay.
And I think it just takes too long to be able to get all the notes in if your fingers are coming that far away. Honestly, when I'm playing, the only time I feel like I leave the instrument are on these 5 tone holes. I have to not be touching anything. I can tell when my fingers get too close because it affects the pitch. But my fingers almost always stay in contact with the G and the stuff my thumb has to play. So anything you can do, like I almost always feel this under my pinky.
Mhm.
It's just right there because I don't want to be any further away than I have to be.
Mm.
This is not something that you can like incorporate right now, like with a musical phrase. But I think on the spectrum of this problem that people have across playing instruments at all, yours is really not so bad. But I am hearing a little bit of things getting crushed or not being totally even, and I think it might be related to that.
Yeah.
So that might be something to look at, not even with this piece, just in general overarching.
Yeah.
Try to keep those fingers as close to the tonals as you can get away with, even touching the keys when they don't have to be, or when you're not playing the note. Like on the stuff down here for your pinky, this pinky over here, thumb stuff, almost always in contact, never be far away. Okay, so I just wanted to demonstrate that to give, I mean, did it look like my fingers are pretty close to what they're doing? Yeah. I think that's the idea with playing fast. It's about economy of motion. If you're wasting any extra distance, moving your finger away from a tone hole, or extra, some people have the thing, and I don't see this with you at all, but some people have the thing where their fingers flatten out when they're playing, like they have this kind of flat knuckle thing like this over here. That's to lift this finger, then it becomes 1, 2 steps instead of just 1. And the same thing over here. Plus, if I'm able to flatten this out, it's because I'm pressing down fairly hard.
Yeah.
And that's just any kind of extra. I don't have to push any harder to cover the hole. It's covered with this. Any harder push is just wasted effort. And again, economy of motion, economy of effort. So that's what I would encourage you to try when you're working on things slowly, especially. Make sure you're super relaxed. And as things get faster, work on being super relaxed, close to the holes. Relaxed does not mean less precise or lazy, but just no more tension than you need, and no more distance, traveling distance than you need. Okay. So, like I said, not easy to fix in the moment, but let's start from the beginning again. I want to hear you play from the beginning, and let's see if we can get some of the stuff sounds really crushed. Are you going for that? Like over here? Dig it up.
I'm like trying to make it quick, but I think if you're describing it crushed, then that's not what we're going for. We definitely want the notes to be heard.
Play it again from the top.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll use the word crushed this time, but I want to listen to what you're doing and see if we can get
more, or
maybe compressed, maybe, but just go ahead. Okay, beat 2.
Yep.
Okay, success, not success, okay? Something wasn't there. I think the G was just fluffed, and there was no note where the G should have been. So there was an F and an A flat, with nothing in between, okay? So we gotta figure that out. We have to figure out why that's happening. Same speed, because I'm gonna be listening super close to that now, and I'm gonna be watching like a hawk. I want you to be aware of what you're doing, be very aware of your fingers and what they're doing and how the note speaks. After all this discussion, it probably will work, but if it doesn't, at least we'll both be paying attention, we'll be able to figure this out. So Go ahead. Okay, that one did work, the note was there, but it does sound very compressed. This is, the G does have a very specific length. I mean, I know that it's written in 3/8, so these are 30-second notes, and oh my God, there's a lot of black, right? But it's not so much black that it has no actual value of time. It has a very specific value of time. So I get the sense that you just are treating it like, I gotta get past it quick because there's a lot of black there. And then, this A flat, has a very definite length too, and it feels like that, then you get to it so soon that you don't know what to do, so it sort of was short. Beep, bum, da, da, bum, 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 bum. If those were all exactly the right proportion, 1 and 2 E and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 E and has length, 1 and 2 E and 3 and 1. Okay?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening is anything that has the 30-second figure in it, It's not, well, I'm playing longer notes here than you did. Forget about the eighth notes. But even the 32nd, 16th, and beat 1 of each of those measures seem to be. If I were to play a bunch of them in a row, suddenly they're not so fast.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we have to take one of those really nice normal ones out of the ones that are in a row and then insert it here. Can you do, let's try that experiment. So over here with this beat 2 thing, the very first measure. Can you just play a series of that are all the tempo you want to play, correct rhythm, not crush or anything like that. Just play several measures of it. Good. Now, play from the beginning. Okay, play a bunch of them in a row. Because the first, when you did it, a bunch of them in a row, the first 2 or 3 were like that.
Right.
And then you evened it out. That's why I just told you to stop suddenly and capture that last one and put it in there in the music itself. So play a bunch of them in a row, capture the last one in your mind, how it's supposed to sound and feel, and then start at the beginning of the piece. Okay. So, some things were better, some things you went back to. The thing that was better was this da-da-da was even, but you still have the habit of shortening the A flat. Exactly, exactly. So but you see how the exercise works?
Yeah.
Where you go da-da-dum, dee-da-dum, da-da-dum, 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 capture that last good one, beep bum, ba-ga-dum, bum, 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 and then you stick it in there. And that's how you change the habit that you've grown accustomed to doing. Because you've grown accustomed to a habitual way of doing it your way. And if you want to change it, you're going to have to capture the right way and insert it in. And then do that maybe a bunch of times. Okay? Mm-hmm. So it might seem silly to practice it this way. Okay? But it's going to be there for you. Okay? And then eventually you get to a point where the old habit of is going to go away. It will have been replaced with a new habit. And that's what we're shooting for here. I know you can do it. Which is probably, it might be a little frustrating. Like if
no, it's fine. It's just, I totally understand what you see about like the habit. Once you build a habit, it's very hard to.
You have to replace a habit. You can't undo a habit.
Right.
You have to replace a habit with a different habit. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was trying to, when you play da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da, you kind of build it is the beginning of building the habit, and then go back and stick it in place. Mm-hmm. And if you do that sequence enough times, there's a chance the old one can sneak back in, but you're going to have, the success rate will go higher and higher the more times you repeat that sequence. So it's a way of overcoming these little glitches that work their way in inadvertently. You know, when you were, let me ask you, when you were preparing this, were you kind of under the gun? Do you have plenty of time to get this ready for a performance?
Yeah, I think where that perhaps came from was like performing it under like high stress situations or like and so then just like rushing it. And then maybe that just like building in, like the feeling of performing this piece, like maybe makes me a little anxious or something, and then like that builds in. So it could be like a feeling associated with it also. But.
The time spent with this movement in the future would be just having fun with it, low stress.
Yeah, I could like go to a spa and we'll play.
Sure. Yeah. Well.
Super
okay.
Relaxed.
You want to get the permission of the spa, maybe. But well, no, but I think that's the right idea. If you approach it from the mental standpoint of I'm just doing this for fun, then you might a lot of these little crushed things that are happening, because it's happening a bunch, especially that da-ga-da figure that happens all through this. Yeah. Those tend to get really crushed, and so you do it like the very here. Can you play from here? This is the very end of it. Okay, so I was really just interested in the dig-a-dum-bum-bum, dig-a-dum-dum, okay? So those are really super crushed. So, technical issue with this, how to get from the C smoothly to the B flat. Are you flicking?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're, oh, what's that?
Yeah, I am. Okay.
If you're going to flick that, do you need your thumb on the E and the C?
Probably not.
Would it be less stressful? And not have to move your thumb up there?
I think so.
Yeah, and that happens over and over in this section, right? You have to flick that one. This one, no. You have to flick this one, right? Across the register break.
And then you're up there for the D flat.
Yeah, and then the D flat, you can flick the B flat if you want, the second B flat here. But my point is over here to take this rhythm, dug-a-dum-bum-bum, dug-a-dum. It sounds super crushed when you're doing it, and I think it's partly because you just feel the stress of, I gotta get this flick in there.
Huh.
I gotta look at the music, so I don't know this memorized. Okay, I'm not gonna try and play it exactly, but you see what I'm getting at. So it doesn't sound so. Now, if I were to do it up the tempo. Okay, but you get my point. It's. Can you hear the difference in how I'm doing it
I think,
versus how crushed it
I'm
was?
kind of going. Yeah.
Can you sing the rhythm?
Da 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 da.
No,
da.
using like 1E and 2, that kind of stuff.
Oh. Yeah. 1E and 2 and 3E and 4E or 1E and 2 and 3E and 1E and 2.
Okay. 1E and 2 and 3. Now 1E and 2 and 3 and 1E and
2 and
1E and 2 and 3 and. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So those two have the C. Da da. That C is getting just totally gypped. That poor guy doesn't get any love whatsoever. Okay. Poor little C. Okay. So don't forget, you know, that note does have a point. You wrote it for a reason. Now, it almost sounds like that. It's almost like it's a completely unnecessary grace note.
Got it.
I can play it super fast, but I kind of lose the sense of. Okay. I want that C to be part of it. Can you, right now, and see if you can do it on the fly, just really focus on, I know the accent's on the E. I appreciate you trying to do the accent. The accent is not having any trouble getting out on the E. But what's happening is the C is just going away.
Got it.
Okay?
Okay.
Play it with just a little bit of accent in the E, but keep that C in there. Okay, now let's back it up. And at the tempo you want to play, because that was obviously slower than you were performing it.
Okay, so you want me to go full speed?
So full speed and back up 2 measures, and still try to maintain that presence of the C. It's still supposed to be there. Go ahead.
Is that better or something?
I could hear the C for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
and I had forgotten that you were doing a big slowdown there. So.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I could also do that without the.
Well, no, it's fine. I'm not going to get into that aspect right now.
Okay.
But this was definitely less crushed than it was every other time you've done it previous.
Okay.
So that's what this movement needs is to have all the notes be to have their due. Some of them are just getting lost in the crush because it looks like it should be really fast and you're really blasting through it as quick as you can. Some of the notes actually go away. And if it's something over the break, like the very first one over here is over the break, if that note gets fluffed at all, it just goes away if there's not perfect coordination of the fingers, right? Because it's over the register break. So that's why that one was really jarring at the very, very beginning.
Got it.
Okay?
Okay.
So that if you could do anything with this one, that would be my recommendation.
Sure.
And all these things like, okay. Hope that was an A flat, sorry. But you get my point. Just really don't be afraid to dig into the technical bits. All the notes should be there. They should all be intelligible to your listener, okay?
Got it.
And you slow down there. You're taking liberties with the time. It's fine. I think if you worked it out with your accompanist, you can totally do that. Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, thank you. This is it's really been great to hear you play again.
Thank you.
I-
Yeah,
I
it's
very
really
much
fun to play
enjoyed
with
this.
you.
And I hope that next time you give a recital, I'm in town to come and hear it.
Me too, yeah.
That was kind of a bummer that I was out of town this past time, but I'm glad I got a chance to hear this. I mean, really sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Slow movement, your sound is really great, and I very much appreciate what you've done to get to a place with just a beautiful sound all the time. So,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
you bet, absolutely. That is right now. That is I would say your big calling card is awesome sound. So, polish up get the technique things. You can have good technique. I've heard it here. I've heard it in other places, but I just want it to be really clear, very, very clear
Yeah.
and ambiguous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that this was helpful for you.
Yeah, very.
Okay,
Yeah, thank
good.
you.